All right, today, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be jumping into a pretty awesome top 5 weapons you guys should be using here in Warzone. I'm going off of right now some Warzone stats here, signifying that these are going to be some of the most picked weapons out there in the entirety of Warzone. So we're giving you guys the best setups to use on some of these incredibly popular guns. I know there's a lot of y'all out there that have been getting probably killed by these things, so might as well have the best setup so you guys can return, start dominate Warzone with them as well. Before we get into anything, if you guys can do me a favor, drop 500 likes on today's video in 24 hours. Also, subscribe, the notifications turned on. A lot of y'all out there watching this video that are not yet subscribed. So quit playing with me, hit that sub button. All right, so for our first gun here today, we're gonna be taking a look at the Vanguard MP40. So this gun here is absolutely incredible. I love the Vanguard MP40. It's probably one of the best secondaries to use, and it's also got one of the highest pick ratios in Warzone. What that means is that, like, when people are going to pick their secondary, their gun, this has an incredibly high pick ratio, which means you're gonna be seeing it literally everywhere in Warzone, whether it be Rebirth Island or Caldera. In my instance, I always play a lot of Reaper, so I mean, I see it very, very frequently. But that's for good reason, because it's unbelievably good, super consistent, and you guys should know that this gun is just a top tier gun. So let's actually hop into a setup for it, give you guys a pretty good one that you're gonna help. This can help you, of course, dominate any close quarter engagement. Okay, so jumping us here, we have our setup here for the MP40. First thing on this is going to be the recoil booster. We got to increase that fire rate. The fire rate increase is incredible on this thing. Absolutely love it. I wouldn't really recommend anything else. After that, we have the Kraustik 317mm04B barrel. This gives you better recoil control, which is definitely awesome. After that, we have in the underbarrel section the M1941 hand stop. This helps that recoil control and accuracy. A little bit lower on the hipfire accuracy, but that's entirely okay. We're not really too concerned about hipfire accuracy on this gun. We like to ADS quite a bit. And then of course we have the 7.62 Gorenko 45 round magazine. This is actually really good, the best mag out there. It seems counterproductive, counterintuitive, because it's going to give you a decrease in all these like pretty crucial values here, but it's actually the best one out there, which is a little bit nuts. As that, we have the incendiary ammunition type. That's super annoying to die by, so that's the reason we have it, because it's just really good and it's super annoying. We have the fabric grip here, which is increase our ADS speed, sprint to fire, and hipfire accuracy, which is always good. It's going to decrease our accuracy ever so slightly, which is entirely okay, because the pros far outweigh the cons. After that, we have, in the optics section, the Krausnik ISO1M iron sights. This actually gives you a benefit increased ADS speed. You guys can for sure run something like the Nidar or maybe the Slate Reflector, but you will not get that increase of ADS speed, which is particularly why I run the Krausnik. And apart from that, the iron sights are pretty solid as well, so you only have to focus too much on that. After that, in the stock section, we have the Krausnik 33M folding stock for sprint to fire speed and movement speed. And last but definitely not least, we have the perk of Steady, which helps increase our ADS fire move speed, and then perk 2 of Quick, which helps increase our sprint speed. Overall, this is my full MP40 build. This is the bioluminescence variant of this gun. I don't really recommend buying this, by the way. It's not really that great. You kind of lose most of the variant when you modify it, but this is the full thing here, so let's move on to our next gun, our top 5. Now we're going to be taking a look at a gun that I personally don't use a heck of a lot, but a lot of people out there really like it. I personally just don't use it a ton because I like some of the other guns out there, particularly like the C58. That's one of my go-tos. I did cover that in my previous top 5, so I won't be covering this one. If you guys want to go see that one, you can definitely do so, but the Cooper Carbine is unbelievably good. It's got a really solid fire rate. The recoil is incredibly easy to control. Also, you can pretty much build this as like a hybrid AR SMG. You can use this as sniper support, as an AR. You can use it as an SMG. It's got a lot of versatility, which is why I think a lot of people are picking this thing in Warzone. So let's actually hop into a pretty good build here for this thing. First up on this thing, we're going to be using this as a primary AR. So we're going to be using the MX silencer here, which only decreases our ADS speed, but gives us sound suppression and accuracy. After that, we're going to use the 22 Cooper custom barrel, which gives us pretty much like a task force equivalent here. This also increases our fire rate and gives us better recoil control, which so it's kind of like a 2-for-1. We always love that. After that, we have the M1941 hand stop for the recoil control. We have the 9mm 60 round drum. Even though this is indeed an AR, you should be using the 9mm 60 round drum. This is how everybody's been building this thing out. I've looked around for plenty of different builds to make sure, like, I even got the top one out there when I'm playing, and this is, I've tried to I've tested this out plenty of times, and I do believe that this, in comparison to the other magazines, is indeed the best, no matter which you're going to be making this for, like an AR, an SMG. This is just the way to go. After that, we have the lengthened ammunition type to increase our bullet velocity, because this is indeed an AR. After that, we have the leather grip, which is not going to decrease our accuracy like the fabric grip would. That's the only reason I'm not running the fabric grip. And then after that, we have the optics section, the G16 2.5 times. Increase that magnification. Also, it's not going to decrease our ADS speed too much, and this is a really clear optics, so we got to love that. And then in the stock section, we have the Cooper 45W stock here, which is just going to help us out with general, like, accuracy and stability and, recoil during sustained fire. So ultimately, that's going to make you more of a laser beam when you're in those prolonged engagements. And then in our perk, we have tight grip here for accuracy and recoil during sustained fire, make you more of a laser beam, and of course, land more of those shots, because sometimes those Vanguard weapons, it feels like they have bloom on them still when they don't. And then after any perk 2 for our final thing here, we have fully loaded, because perk 2 just doesn't really have anything good in it, so you just kind of have to run fully loaded. and that's always good no matter what, realistically. So this is my full Cooper carbine build. Hope y'all enjoyed this one. Super good, would recommend it. I personally don't use it enough just because I'm stuck on that C58 and that kilo and stuff like that, but would really recommend it. All right, now let's take a look at a gun that I personally really enjoy, the STG-44. Absolutely love the STG. It's probably even before a lot of different patch updates. It was unbelievably good, and then they pretty much went through and like buffed all of like the recoil on it, pretty much making it so like had like more recoil down to like very, very little recoil. I guess that's the term buff or nerfed. I don't really know what's the correct term for that, but basically it's got a lot less recoil nowadays than it used to have before, and it was still good before, and now it's incredible. So I highly suggest you guys be using the STG-44 as it definitely competes up there with all the other meta ARs, and I really like it. I mean, I wish I had some better variants and stuff for it. That's the reason I feel like I don't use it as much, because it doesn't look as cool, but it's still really good. And so let's hop into a build here for it, as I think you guys are really gonna like this one. Okay, first thing in here, we have the debt collector variant. I mean, you pretty much lose most of the variant look. That's why I said it kind of sucks, but first thing, muzzle category, we have the MX silencer here like we did for the Cooper carbine. It's not going to decrease our damage range or anything else like that. After that, we had the VDD 760mm 05B barrel. It's like the task force equivalent, gives us damage range and makes our recoil more controllable. Absolutely love that. I wouldn't really recommend anything else in here. After that, we have the M1941 hand stop, recoil control and accuracy. Always a really good one to have on any AR for Vanguard. And then in the magazine section, we have the 8mm Kerr 60 round drum. This just increases your ammo capacity. It's the basic ammunition type that this gun actually uses, so you're not going to lose anything. All you're doing is get a bigger magazine, and I do believe that this is perfect for this gun. I haven't really messed around a lot with some of these other magazines just because they really haven't always been all that great, and I've just found great success running the Kerr 60. After that, we have the lengthened ammunition type. Of course, this can increase our bullet velocity, which is definitely what we need. And then we have in a rear grip section the leather grip, which of course is not going to decrease our accuracy like the fabric grip would. I mean, that's like one of those things you can get away with on an SMG, but an AR, especially the Vanguard weapons, you definitely do not want to start decreasing your accuracy. So leather grip is the way to go. After that, in the optics section, the G16 2.5 times. This is obviously just one of the clearest magnifications out there. I've seen some other people try to use like maybe a 4 times sight on this thing. I don't know exactly which one it is, or the 3.5 times, but personally, I always just go for the G16 2.5, and that seems to be like the perfect amount of range. I can see people at that range, and when they start getting outside that range, that's pretty much like when it's like, okay, my gun's not going to be as effective anymore, so let me just not try to shoot at them with this gun. After that, in the stock section, we have the VDD 27 Precision for horizontal recoil control and aimed on sight speed. Gotta love that. It's also not going to really do much in terms of your overall accuracy. It's going to decrease your hip fire. We don't really care about that. And then your movement speed, we can get away with a little bit of that, because obviously you're not going to be running around with this thing out all the time. You'll pull out maybe your SMG to move around the map a little bit faster. Pro tip and trick right there, always run out with an SMG just to move around a little bit faster. And then for our last thing here, in the perk section, we have focus to help with our flinch resistance, because I mean, this gun, you can deal with a little bit of hit flinch, a little bit extra, and that's not always that fun. Certain focus, and that ends up working out very nicely for me. And then I have the perk 2 of fully loaded, because once again, like the Cooper carbine, there really isn't anything else in here that's all that great. So this is my full build here for the STG. Hope y'all enjoy this one. Super good, really effective. Absolutely love using this thing. You guys 110% should be using the STG in Warzone. Now let's actually take a look at one of my favorite ARs, and also the AR that's going to be on the thumbnail of today's video, the Kilo 141. This thing, I mean, it hasn't been getting like touched a heck of a lot in Warzone in terms of like patch updates and everything, but just because everything else gets nerfed or buffed or whatever the case is, this gun is like been slowly making its way up through the ranks again, and it's just been looked at. It's like, okay, like we almost forgot about this thing because it's such a laser beam. It's got a great, you know, damage profile to it. It's super easy to handle and control, which makes it good for a large majority of the players out there that really aren't that good at controlling recoil. So this gun is becoming a lot more of a favorite out there between the casual people and also some of the more skilled players, just because it's really consistent, really controllable, and I mean, you really can't go wrong with that as in terms of an AR. So let's hop into a build here for this thing and show y'all what it's all about. All right, so hop in this thing. This is much more simple than any of those Vanguard weapons. We got 5 attachments to the 10. I personally prefer this over 10. First thing on this, mono suppressor, sound suppression, damage range. You can't go wrong with this thing. Absolutely the mono. You should never be running a different type of silencer on any of the mono or for weapons. Always run the mono. This is just the way to go. After that, in the barrel section, the Vanguard Arms 19.8 Prowler. The 16.6 is going to do the same exact thing as the Prowler, but it's just going to do less of it in every single aspect. So I'd always recommend, no matter what, to run the Prowler barrel. That's just the way to go. You guys should always be running this thing. After that, in the underbarrel section, we have the Commando foregrip here for recoil stabilization, aiming stability. You can't go wrong with recoil stabilization, aiming stability. I mean, you don't need the Merc foregrip, the tactical, like you don't need any of this other shenanigans down here. You're going to be slowing yourself down way too much, and the recoil is just pretty much non-existent when you have this on here anyways with this exact setup. So you just might as well run this and not slow yourself down too much. That's out of the magazine section. This is where it gets a little bit, you know, kind of tricky. I'm a 60 round magazine kind of guy, so I will frequently run a 60 round magazine, though I have more recently, especially when I'm playing Rebirth Island, switched out to a 50 round magazine just for the sake of a little bit more mobility and better ADS speed. So if you guys are playing Rebirth, you feel like 50 rounds is enough for you, run the 50 round magazine. But if you're okay with having being a little bit slower, run something like the 60 and you guys are going to be entirely okay. Always though, stay away from the 100 round drum. This is not useful. It's going to slow down way too much. This is not good. Stay away from this at all costs. Never use it. It's either the 60 or the 50. That's it. So nothing else. And then for our final attachment, the VLK 3x optic here. Absolutely love this thing. Super clear, very easy to use. And I mean, it's a pretty early-ish level unlock too, so most people are going to have this thing. This is my full build here for the Kilo 141. This is the brass tacks one. I call it like the Gucci variant because it's got the little Gucci snake on it. You can't really get this one anymore. This is like real OG variant for any of you guys that are wondering. This is a pretty cool build for this thing. Would recommend it. 10 out of 10, 7 days a week, 389 days a year. And for our final gun here today, we're once again going to be talking about a Modern Warfare AR, and that's indeed going to be the M13. So this gun is actually a lot higher picked than I would expect it to be. I was looking at the list. I was like, there's no shot the M13 is getting picked up that much, but indeed it is. People love this gun because it's got a high fire rate. It's got a pretty solid damage profile. It's not the hardest hitting, but it's also got incredibly low recoil, which is definitely a recurring theme for a lot of the top performing ARs, is that they have a very minimal recoil pattern, or with attachments, you can make them have virtually no recoil, which is what you can do with the M13. So let's actually hop into this here and give you guys a solid build for this thing that's going to make it dominate at the best range possible, which is going to be about that medium-ish range. Not close range or long range, about that medium-ish range. For our build here on this M13, it's going to be pretty similar to that Kilo 141, but we have the monolithic suppressor, sound suppression, damage range. Can't go wrong with this one. Like I said, it's always the one you should be running. After that, in the barrel section, we have the Tempest Marksman, which is the largest barrel possible. You need this on this gun. You should not be running anything else. Like, genuinely should not be running anything else on this gun. After that, in the underbarrel, we got the Commando foregrip, recoil stabilization, aiming stability. If you run something else, you're doing yourself a disservice. So I would not recommend running anything else besides the Commando foregrip. I mean, I've seen people try to run the Merc. You're just gonna slow yourself down. Same with like the Ranger. Trust me, I've tried this all out before, and the Commando is just ultimately the way to go. After lots and lots of time of using this gun, the Commando is indeed the way to go. Outside in the magazine section, I have the 50 round magazine on here, even though I'm a 60 round magazine kind of guy. But the reason is just because I wanted a little bit more mobility with this thing. I was playing a lot of Rebirth Island, and so I was running the 50 instead of the 60. Though the 60 on this variant also looks pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. So you guys could run the 60 or the 50. It's a little personal preference, but much like the 100 round drum on the Kilo, you got to stay away from the 300 blackout rounds. These things suck ass. Don't ever use them. Seriously, stay away from them at all costs. Don't ever use them. And then for our last attachment here, we are once again, we use the VLK 3x optic. This gun performs incredibly nicely with the VLK, or what I have been using this thing as is I've used this as kind of a bit of a medium range gun with the Corp Combat Hollow sight, especially if you got that beautiful blue dot. I personally don't, but it still works out pretty nicely otherwise, like either way. So you can use the Corp Combat Hollow or the VLK. And also same goes for that Kilo build. You guys can swap out the VLK for that Corp Combat Hollow. That's gonna be a great medium-ish range build as well. That's like the only thing you have to switch out, which is pretty nice. You don't have to mess around with too many things on your attachments. You can also save variants here, like you can't for Vanguard, which is kind of stupid because they have 10 attachments and you can't save your stuff. For these 5 attachment weapons, you can. So I don't know. Hey, I hope they fix that here soon. But anyways, this has been my top 5. Y'all enjoyed this one? Give it a like, subscribe to our brain, and turn on those post noties. And I'll see you guys all later. Just run the show cap. Don't be Randy, and I'm out. Peace.